this. And I'm not even sure what to call it. I was going to call it a series, but that's unfair. Let me tell you what we're going to do. When I have historically completed the series God's Plan for Salvation, we then go back to a series we had to interrupt, or we just begin something new. And usually it's a book study. But I've, for months now, sensed I didn't want to do that I wanted to do something different. So bear with me. I have no idea. This is going to be the first of some, and I don't know if there's 3 or 4 or if there's 6 or 8 or 10. It's going to be until I feel like I've just emptied myself really before you, and that's my intention. I am filled up with something that I want to say, and I think I know what it is, and yet I want to say it over and over again until it's just so through me and so through you. And this is what's really key. And so through us as a body, that we're on the same page. Okay. Now here's the phrase that started all of this, and it actually began last summer. It's okay. That's exactly how I feel. If I could, hey Pam, can you come back and carry me out now, and then I can get out of here too? That would be great. I'd love that. Here you go. I'm saved by God, from God, for God. Now, God's plan for salvation is all about being saved by God, from God. Psalm 3, verse 8, and it's all through the Scripture. Salvation belongs to the Lord. I did this morning. Give me just a second here. This book is essentially about 3 things: creation, man's fall, and redemption. Now here's what's interesting. Here's creation and the fall here. Here's redemption here. Here's creation and the fall. We're done with that by page 20. And that includes a bunch of footnotes. Creation and the fall, and now redemption. I'm saved by God, from God, for God. All of our salvation, any credit that's due, all the praise goes to Him and to Him alone. Okay? Salvation belongs to the Lord. Again, Psalm 3, verse 8. It's all His. God saves sinners. Saved by God, from God. And that's what we talk about. That's what we really focus on in that series, God's plan for salvation. What occurred to me in the midst of this, and literally I'm talking about the last few months, and even back into summer as I was prepping for this, is that as I do God's plan for salvation, I'm going to stay in theological terms for a second, I should be doing a series titled God's Plan for Sanctification. In other words, God's plan for salvation, I'm saved by God, from God. God's plan for sanctification, I'm saved by God, for God. Hang with me. It is so, and I know this is really dramatic terminology, but those of you who are around know that I don't usually talk this way. It so filled me up thinking about this. I have not been able to get this out of my mind. It's not to say it's 24/7, but it's to say a reoccurring theme. There hasn't a day that's gone by in the last, maybe since summer break, that I have not thought about being saved for God. And what does that mean? Saved by God, from God. That's God's plan for salvation, doctrines of grace, that's what He does. But He does it for a reason. When Robert Gelinas was here, and if you're part of 710, you will remember his visit. He kicked off 710 this year. He is the pastor at Tyler's church in Denver. And he was talking about, he'd just gotten back from Africa. And he was talking about how when you travel to different countries, especially if people are learning English, they want to practice their English on you. Okay? So he said he got into a cab. Now, the phrase that we have, that we would use, would be this: what in the world are you doing? So we would say it that way. What in the world are you doing on a ladder putting up Christmas decorations? That's the way I tend to think. Okay? What in the world are you doing? The cab driver was trying to capture that thought. He used the same 7 words, and he created a question, but he rearranged the words, and the question was this: What are you doing in the world? Those are two very different questions. What in the world are you doing? What are you doing in the world? Saved for God. See, now this is all coming together for me. When I'm saved by God, from God, He's changed my designation. I'm a saint. My destination is now heaven. He left me here, though my citizenship, Philippians chapter 3, verse 20, my citizenship is in heaven. So in a sense, there's this duality, this dual passport. I finished a book, a couple of months ago, written by a gentleman by the name of Stephen Nichols. It's titled Heaven on Earth, subtitle, Capturing Jonathan Edwards' Vision of Living in Between. He means in between heaven and earth. What do we do here? And I want to read you kind of a long passage from that book, and I'm doing that because I thought, well, I can paraphrase this, and the reality is I can't. So I want you to get this. What he's talking about is Philippians 3:20. Our citizenship is in heaven. Now, here's what he writes. Paul's metaphor of citizenship only makes sense in its first century context. Paul could rely on his citizenship to help him out of a legal bind, for being a Roman citizen meant having great privileges. We read about that in the book of Romans, how Paul calls upon his citizenship. For the citizenship metaphor, however, extends far beyond privileges and rights, such as a fair trial. The Roman Empire was a conglomerate, a patchwork quilt of nations and city-states. For the empire to run smoothly required uniformity. Greek was the official language, the pantheon of gods the official religion, and Caesar and the Roman Senate the law of the land. This uniformity also came about through Rome's program of decreasing national and ethnic identities and increasing their central identity. One's allegiance was not first to Philippi or Israel or Alexandria, it was first to Rome. Rome would deport citizens to various nations and city-states it conquered, dispersing them throughout the empire. Rome would also force its citizens to establish cities, to move even to the far reaches of the empire. Long before the wave of immigrants made America the great melting pot of the modern world, the Roman Empire attempted to bring the entire Mediterranean world under one roof. One was a Roman first, a Philippian or Jew or Alexandrian second. Okay? Got that? Here you go. He continues. So to be a Roman citizen living in Philippi or wherever did not mean you spent your time pining away for the good life in the city of Rome. It did not mean you longed to get back out of Philippi or out of Asia Minor or back to where your heart was, the city of Rome. Instead, it meant that you were entrusted with the task of bringing Rome and all of its achievements and glory to Philippi or Jerusalem or Alexandria, wherever you found yourself. Now, obviously, Paul understood what he was using when he uses this picture, this metaphor. Not all metaphors are perfect. For example, Paul said, absent the body, present the Lord, I'm born in two directions. But what this metaphor captures is our privilege of coming here, being here, though our citizenship is in heaven, being here on this earth and representing that kingdom on this earth. If I were to kind of rework this sentence he uses, instead, what this meant were you entrusted with the task of bringing heaven and all its achievements and glory to Gilbert or Mesa, Phoenix, wherever you found yourself to be. Gordon Fee, another author, writes this: just as Philippi was a colony of Rome, whose citizens thereby exemplified the life of Rome in the province of Macedonia, so citizens of the heavenly commonwealth were to function as a colony of heaven in that outpost of Rome. In other words, What are you doing in the world? Now, the Heidelberg Catechism has a slick answer. Here's what it says. What's the chief end of man? And you know the answer, right? Chief end of man is to glorify God and to enjoy Him forever. I know somewhere in here, next week or the following week, I want to land in Matthew 5. So here's what happens. I've got these thoughts going on. I'm reading Stephen Nichols. I'm working through in my own life, saved by God, from God, for God. I'm spending a lot of time thinking about the for God. I'm thinking about two specific passages over and over again, Philippians 3:20 and 2 Corinthians 5:17. And in the middle of this, I'm rereading through the Gospel of Matthew. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to turn to Matthew chapter 5, and I want you to see how, again, this stuff is all coming together. And hopefully, we're going to reap the benefits of this thought process and this study and this work and these conversations over a period of however long it takes. Matthew chapter 5, the minute I say that, those of you that are familiar with the Scriptures will understand that Matthew chapter 5 and Matthew chapter 6 and Matthew chapter 7 deal with a section of Scripture that's identified as the Sermon on the Mount. Jesus is teaching. Matthew chapter 5, verse 1, Jesus saw the crowds. He went up on the mountain, and after he sat down, his disciples came to him. He opened his mouth and began to teach them. Now, he sits down not because he's pooped, okay? He sits down because they would understand that for a rabbi, he was taking the position of teacher. The rabbi is ready to teach. And he begins with blessed. And you see that in verse 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Blessed. It means happy. It doesn't mean happy in some superficial way, like we would say we're happy. I've learned this about Braden, okay? I have learned, Braden is the grandson, he was one week ago yesterday, that Braden is happy in short spurts. He's happy for a while, and then he's not quite as happy. I've heard that and seen, witnessed, experienced, that making him happy at this point is relatively easy and inexpensive. It is as easy as a Cheerio. Okay? And so I simply put the bag over his head, and I sense when he's done eating his way out, he's happy. He likes Cheerios or a box. I brought in a box of water and put the water in the refrigerator yesterday, and then we put him in the box, and he sat in the box with a book for 20 or 25 minutes, okay, playing with his book. Very, very economical, okay? Making my Christmas shopping far easier than I ever expected. Okay? Actually, I gave him a pool fence for Christmas. Yeah, don't know that he appreciates it quite yet. But that's happiness. So we say, I'm happy, or the Hawkeyes won. This is totally theoretical. This makes me happy. Or I moved from Tucson, I'm happy. That kind of a phrase. Right? Although that would be more of a permanent happiness, so that's not a perfect illustration here. But I have temporary happiness. It's superficial. The climate is right. I'm full. I'm happy. What he's talking about here is a deep, rich happiness that comes from life and understanding all that goes on in life, understanding God and who He is. So it begins with blessed or happy are the poor in spirit. In fact, just look at those. It doesn't seem to make sense humanly. Blessed are the poor in spirit. Blessed. Let's do happy. Happy are those who mourn. Happy are the gentle. Happy are the hungry and thirsty. Happy are the merciful. Happy are the pure in heart. It's a picture of the Christian life. It begins with spiritual bankruptcy, or at least the acknowledgement of that I am nothing in and of myself. And then all of a sudden, there is this moment, and it's meant to, again, capture the Christian life. That's how I progress. That's how I grow. Look at verse 13. Okay, I just want to read the first phrase. You are the salt of the earth. Verse 14, you are the light of the world. And verse 16, and this is the verse that kept going through my head over and over again. Let your light shine before men in such a way that they may see your good works and glorify your Father who is in heaven. So you're supposed to be salt and light. We'll talk about this, as I say, in next week or a couple weeks. Supposed to be salt, and you're preservative, and you create thirst, all that stuff. You're light, you bring reality, you energize, you do all that. Okay? And we're fairly familiar with that. And verse 16 to me is that verse that I kept coming back to again and again and again and again and again. He said, now, okay, now here's what I want you to do. What are you doing in the earth? Here's what you ought to be doing in the earth. Let your light shine before men. Let your life be transformed, your transformed life be on display. Let your light shine before men, that they may see your good works and glorify your fathers in heaven. So your life ought to be such that the people around you look at you and they see your good works. My Christianity should be visible. Here's a way we've said it historically, and we'll come back to that again. That I have two tasks: to make the invisible God visible, and then to speak the truth boldly. Here's the first part of verse 16. To let my light shine in such a way that people will see your good works. They'll see it. They'll see something about you. It will just happen. There'll be something different about you. The second part, glorify your fathers in heaven, that will not happen unless you tell them about him. If they just see your good works, they're going to glorify what? You. They're going to say, you're really something special. I've never met anybody like you. I've never had a boss like you. I've never had a teacher like you. I've never had a student like you. I've never had anybody in my life like you. I've never had a date like you. I've never had anybody around like you. I've never had an employee like you. There's never been anybody like you. You are something very, very, very special. And they're going to write it off to either your personality or your temperament, or that's the way they're wired, whatever the case may be. They're going to see your good works. That's not enough. They're to glorify your fathers in heaven. And for them to do this, you've got to tell him that he is the one who's generated those good works. So that's where I want to land. It seems to me that kind of in there is the kernel of saved by God, from God, for God. Right in there's that kernel. It's what the Heidelberg Catechism said. Chief end to glorify God and to enjoy him forever. Second part, to enjoy him forever, that's the message that John Piper's captured, right? So John Piper says, if you've read one of my books, you've read them all. I would paraphrase that and say, if you've read one chapter of one of his books, you've read them all. It's to enjoy God. It's for me to find life in him. He is life. I find life in him and him alone. And so sin becomes when I try to transgress that, or I try to find my identity or my meaning or my purpose or my happiness in anything but him. Nothing is going to fill me but him. No person, place, or thing will fill me but Jesus. I enjoy him forever. Now my privilege here, my purpose here, my meaning here is to glorify him. To have, and apparently, if I'm reading this correctly, apparently there's a visible manifestation of this. I should see your Christianity. I should see your good works. You should see mine. And then we should tell people it's Jesus. So that's where I want to get. I want to get to that Matthew 5:16. I want to use a little dose of I feel like Paula up here cooking. Of course, that'd be a pound of butter and cream cheese if it was Paula. But a little bit of Philippians 3:20 and a little 2 Corinthians 5. But I want to start in what might seem like the most unlikely of places. Okay? You can mark Matthew. We'll be back at the very end. I want you to turn to the left into the Old Testament to the book of Isaiah. And that's where we're going to spend the balance of our time here today. Isaiah chapter 6. Familiar passage. The minute I say that, if you're part of the worship and arts ministry here at East Valley Bible Church, you know, because Gary talks about this passage over and over and over and over again, you'll be very familiar with this. Okay? It's a wonderful passage. Now, I would tell you this. As I had gone to that, put this together, I had inserted this passage in there. Last summer, Beth Hancock knew that I was working on some things about doctrines of grace, and she gave me this little pamphlet. I love to hold up books like this because there's a chance, not that you'll buy them, but that you'll read them, okay? It's 30 pages. It's called What is a True Calvinist by Philip Rankin. By the way, do you have a lot of books you don't finish? A lot of books you don't get through? I'm going to tell you why. Because do you feel guilty about it? Yeah. I'm going to tell you why you don't get through them. The author runs out of things to say. You ever think about it? They run out of stuff to say. Have you noticed how all the good stuff's at the beginning of the book and then it's just a rehash? I'm in a guy's office one day. He's an author, nationally recognized. You'd know him, so I won't use his name because he didn't give me permission to. I didn't ask him. I said, what are you doing? He said, I'm storyboarding in the back in the conference room. I'm storyboarding my new book. You want to take a look at it? I said, yeah. So I'm looking at it, all this. He said, what do you think? I said, well, you know. He said, no, that's all right. Tell me what you think. I said, it's all out of order. Chapter 1 makes sense, but chapter 2 and 3 and 4 belong at the end, and chapter 7, 8, and 9 belong at the front, and all this stuff, it's out of order. He said, I said, but I don't know the book. I don't mean to be critical. He said, no, you're exactly right. He said, the publisher sent it back this way. He said, all the good stuff's at the end. You got to put it at the beginning because nobody's going to read past the first few chapters. It was a great moment for me. It was exactly what I suspected. They were putting all the good stuff at the beginning, and so I was running out of juice by the middle, and they were getting boring all at the same time, and so I have a bunch of half-finished books. This also proves my point that most books should be pamphlets. Wonderful. The whole point of this, there's some of these around somewhere. You ought to grab one. It's really good. What is a true Calvinist? In this book, he goes right to Isaiah 6, and I just smiled when I got there. Because I'm thinking, everything's coming together for me. Everything's lining up for me. By the way, I don't think I mentioned this at the beginning. Sarah called me Friday and said, Dad, or Thursday, will you go to the movie with me tomorrow? I said, what movie are we going to see? And she said, I want to go see the Nativity Story. I don't know if has anybody in here seen it yet? Okay, a couple of pieces. I'm going to tell you something, okay? This movie is wonderful. This movie was terrific. I will see it again. I'll buy the video. I'm sure we'll be using it in here. I have this thing about how we get so sterile when we tell the Christmas story. But you have a 14-year-old virgin, unmarried, telling her dad she's pregnant. What's that like? I thought that movie was absolutely wonderful. And I would tell you, you ought to go see it somewhere along the way, or wait and get the video. It was great. It was a wonderful movie. Okay. Now, the problem with that endorsement is I forgot what I was saying when I got to it. So I'll take a drink, and then you can tell me where I was. Isaiah 6. I got it, I got it sitting right here, Isaiah 6. There was a point I was going to make. But all this is coming together. So here's Isaiah 6. Here's Isaiah 6. Now, look at what happens. Okay? I'm going to give you that. We're going to fly over, then come back. Isaiah sees God, who he really is. And the minute that happens, verse 5, Isaiah sees himself for who he really is. He diagnoses his problem, which is sin. He realizes the only solution, which is God. So if you look at Isaiah chapter 6, verse 1 through 6, I'm saved by God, from God. Look at verse 8. For God. Who shall I send? Send me. I'm saved by God, from God, for God. Now let's look at the story. God reveals to Isaiah his glory and his majesty and his holiness and his grace. And when he does, his life changes. Just like for you and me, when we understand the doctrines of grace, we see his glory and his majesty and his holiness and his grace, and our life begins to change. I had several people, alarmingly high for me, say to me when we decided to do God's plan for salvation again. I've heard that a couple times. I think I'm going to use this time to visit other churches, or I'm going to, and I don't take stuff like that personally. I mean, maybe I should, I don't. I just thought there's a level of arrogance to that I can barely stand. Jonathan Edwards, smidgen smarter than you, way smarter than me. Jonathan Edwards, I think, would say at the end of his life, I still haven't figured out all of the doctrine of grace and its implications. If that's how you think, then my guess is you haven't got the full implication of it, or, and I'll accept responsibility for this, or I haven't delivered it to you, and I think what could be missing is what we're going to talk about now, the saved for God. In the year that King Uzziah died, that is 739 BC. King Uzziah was the king of Judah, the 2 tribes to the south, 10 tribes to the north, known as Israel, kind of in the land of Samaria. Uzziah was by and large a really good king. He did, however, have a tragic flaw. Keep your mark right there in Isaiah 6 and turn to the left to 2 Chronicles chapter 26. We're in some territory some of you haven't been in a while today, huh? Or me either. 2 Chronicles chapter 26, we meet Uzziah. He reigned for 52 years, and by all accounts was a pretty good king. Certainly a stabilizing force in the land. Well, look what happened to him in 2 Chronicles chapter 26, verse 16. When this is Uzziah, and if you look up, just look in a few verses ahead, you'll see numbers and horses and warriors and households and money, and he's got all this stuff. When Uzziah became strong, his heart was so proud that he acted corruptly and was unfaithful to the Lord God, for he entered the temple of the Lord to burn incense on the altar of incense. Here's what's happened. He's ruled for a while, and he's been pretty successful, and his favorite song is How Great I Art, and this song's playing a lot, and he's saying, look at this, and look at this, and look at this. Put it in our context, he would say, I've done this deal and this deal, I've closed that, look at this, look at the Super Bowl rings, look at the scholarships, you put it in your context. Very successful person. Phoenix Magazine in the current edition has a 40-year retrospect of Phoenix and what 40 things we would have never expected to happen in the valley. Well, Uzziah, if they would have had this for Judah, he would have been on every page. That's the point. He was very strong. He was a person of influence. CEO, person of the year. King, you'd assume that, but a king that's been blessed and successful with all of these things around him. Everybody around would say, that guy's a real guy. So maybe you. This is really interesting. That strength, let me give you another term for this strength he experiences. That blessing of God was the resulted in him being proud. And when he was proud, he acted corruptedly, and what he did was usurp or take the job of the priest, take incense into the altar of incense, when that was a job that was forbidden for anyone but the priest to do. They warned him in verse 17 and verse 18. They said, get out of the sanctuary. Uzziah, with a censer in his hand, was burning incense and is enraged. While he was enraged with the priest, leprosy broke out on his forehead. God isn't going to put up with this. Verse 20. Verse 20. Chief priests, all the priests looked at him. Behold, he was leprous on the forehead. They hurried out of there, and he himself was also hastened to get out of there because the Lord had smitten him. King Uzziah was a leper ceremonially now. He's thinking he's a god. Well, not God. He's thinking he's a priest. And now he's ceremonially unclean. Nothing can do about that. And the result of that, he'll live in a separate house, being a leper. He's cut off from the house of the Lord. That's a pretty good guy. He was king for a while. That's his story. It's his background. So we go back to the story in Isaiah 6. The year that King Uzziah died, 739 BC, Isaiah has a vision. And here's what he sees. He sees the Lord sitting on a throne, lofty, exalted. The train of his robe is filling the temple. Seraphim stood above him. Each had 6 wings. 2 covered their face, 2 covered their feet, and then the other 2 they used for what you typically use wings for. They were flying. And one would call out to another. You get this beautiful, almost surround sound thing going on. Holy, holy, holy. Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. The heavens or the earth is filled with his glory. It's all around. It's Romans 1. The earth is a testimony of his glory. And the foundations of the threshold trembled at the voice of him who called out while the temple was filled with smoke. And we could stop and we could unpack all of that. What we're seeing is God on the throne. Not God the Father, right? No one's seeing God because God is spirit. Who is Isaiah seeing at this moment? You don't need to turn there. Let me just give you some of these verses and try to tie this together. It's so wonderful when you get it together. In John chapter 12, Jesus is performing some miracles. And John tells us that this was to fulfill the prophecy of Isaiah. And then he deals with these prophecies. And then Isaiah chapter 12, verse 41, these things Isaiah said because he saw his glory and he spoke of him. These things that Isaiah saw were, and the person that he saw was Jesus, a pre-incarnate Christ. So in Philippians 2, when Paul said, have the attitude in yourself which was also in Christ Jesus, who although he existed in the form of God, did not regard equality with God a thing to be grasped, but he emptied himself, taking the form of a bondservant, being made in the likeness of man. What did he empty himself from? Isaiah 6. He's the one seated on the throne. That's where he is. One of the authors writes this, and I think it's helpful. Isaiah's vision is not simply a dream of the past, it's a present reality. To this day, the Lord of glory sits at the center of heaven and receives the praise of countless angels. It may be just God not only helping him in this grand scheme of things, of understanding who God is, helping Isaiah with that, but it may be in a sense a sort of comfort. If this good king has ruled for 42 years, there's a little bit in the land of what are we going to do now? What's going to happen now? And God says, wait a minute, look at this. I'm still on the throne. Let's apply it to our life. Right? That job that just got terminated, he knew that was going to happen. Where is he? He's on the throne. That relationship, that hardship, that difficulty, that suffering, the persecution, the trials, all of that stuff that comes into your life, where there's that temptation perhaps to say, where is God? Here's where he is. He's high, lifted up, exalted, sitting on the throne in absolute control. So you know what? Relax. He's right where he's always been. One day we're going to see that. Isn't there great comfort to that? He's sovereign. Isaiah sees this. They're crying out, holy, holy, holy. That word holy means other, separate, different than us. It's distinct for us. We can't even begin to define it. It's so confusing. It's everything that we aren't. And they're singing this all around him. Verse 5. When he sees this, he says, this is the New American Standard, woe to me, for I'm ruined. The King James, woe to me, for I'm undone. The English Standard Version, woe to me, for I'm lost. Once I look at my life and I compare it to God and who he is, I all of a sudden see myself for who I really am, and it is devastating. I'm ruined. I'm undone. I'm lost. I see the sovereign God, and I can't in any way compare or compete with him. The minute Isaiah understands who God is, Isaiah, at that point, is devastated. New self-image. Can't stand the comparison. By the way, when you're talking with friends, one of the great challenges is to help them see that they have a need. I have a good friend whose father is a guy that I knew about and knew a lot about him, pretty successful businessman. And I said, is your father a Christian? And years ago he said to me, no, he's not. He said, he sees no need, meaning he has everything he wants, everything he needs, very successful. Well, I need a little adjustment in my thinking. See if this connects for you, because it made me laugh yesterday. I got tired of writing out in my notes God's plan for salvation. So I abbreviated it to GPS. When I did that, I said, well, that's familiar to me. Global Positioning System. I kind of know what that is. I want to make sure I got it right. So I do a little internet work, and basically, as you know, it's developed by the Defense Department originally, opened up to the marketplace in the 80s. And with triangulation, they take these satellites and they hone in on one location, and they can tell you exactly where you are. Now, I got to laugh as I do this. God's plan for salvation, GPS, has a tendency to triangulate you and show you right where you are. And you're not much. He's everything. He comes to the realization that he's a sinner, that he needs help, that there's nothing he can do. Verse 6, then one of the seraphim flew to me with a burning coal in his hand, which he'd taken from the altar with a tongue, and he touched my mouth with it and said, behold, this has touched your lips, and your iniquity is taken away, and your sin is forgiven. Here's what's happened. Isaiah sees God, and by the comparison, he said, woe to me, I'm undone, I'm ruined, I'm lost. He said, and his expression of this is interesting, I'm a man of unclean lips. Now, is he saying he talked like a sailor? Is he saying he swore a lot? Well, there may be part of that. I don't think that's what he's saying. I think he's saying that my lips are expression of what's in my heart. I'm a huge Seinfeld fan. I love Seinfeld. And so I heard a bunch about Kramer and his little deal, and I thought, well, whatever, when I saw that, I was, I don't even know how to say it. It was just sickening to watch. I mean, I had a physical reaction to that language. I growing up, though I'm a white guy, okay? Some of you are black, and you probably noticed that I'm white, okay? But I'm a white guy growing up, and I'm just going to go, the N-word was totally unacceptable in any culture I was in. I wouldn't even think to use that word. I wouldn't use it in our house. If my girls would never use it, but I'd heard that word, and I knew the word, and I understood what it was, got all that. I'm just watching this stuff pour out of him. What was interesting is, the next night when I turned on Seinfeld, I couldn't watch it. Now, I got to work through this, okay? Can't stay in this position very long. So I'm listening to him, and he's saying, I'm not a racist, and I'm saying, oh, boy, that stuff I heard sounds pretty, and then it kind of was, and this is what they're saying, this is probably what's in his heart. And I thought, right of Isaiah chapter 5, that's exactly what he's saying. He's not talking about racism. He's just talking about all of sin. He's not singling out that one. He's saying any sin. What's coming out of your mouth is showing me what's in your heart. And Isaiah says, I'm getting a real clear glimpse of what my sin is. Maybe gossip, maybe slander. Whatever it is, it's coming out. And he said, I'm in real trouble. I need help. And there's nothing he can do. God goes to the altar. It's a place of sacrifice. Coal comes from the place of sacrifice. God is about to remove his guilt. God is about to atone for the sin. For you and me, 1 John 1:9, if we confess our sin, God is faithful and righteous to what? Forgive us and to what? Cleanse us. It's not just forgive, it's to cleanse. It's that picture of cleansing. Something happens to Isaiah here. His sin is forgiven. See what we've got here in these first 7 verses? I'm saved by God, from God. That's GPS. That's God's plan for salvation. Verse 8, for God. Then I heard the voice of the Lord saying, who shall I send? Who will go for us? Now, there's a little subtlety in there. There's the use of the plural personal pronoun. Who will go for us? It's the picture of the Trinity, Father, Son, Holy Spirit here. The triune God. Nor does God say, hey, you, Isaiah, we've done all this, now it's time to go. This is a call, I think, not just to Isaiah, but to every person. Who will go? Who will I send? Now, Isaiah's there, and he said, here I am, send me. By the way, there's a wonderful task. I'll let you work your way through it. It's not long. It's just verse 9 and 10. He's called them to go and be a prophet, but he tells them they aren't going to listen. He paints a picture that this is not going to be happy. So bad is the assignment that, look at verse 11. Isaiah says, how long do I have to do this? This doesn't sound very good. I'm a prophet, and I'm going to take this message, and they won't hear it. They can't hear it. None of them are going to respond. How long will we be doing this, God? Let me see if I got 9 minutes here. Let me see if I can pull this together. I'm saved by God, from God, for God. Once I understand who God is, I immediately see my sin, and then God gives me the provision. Here's what it says on this sign. Go straight to the hospital, labor progressing quickly. So let me finish this. All right. You all figure it out. Right.